Hello, and welcome back to the Dream Life Diaries podcast. I am so excited to have you all here today. And if you're new here, my name is McKenna. I've personally been studying the mindset, manifestation, spirituality space for years now. I've spent so much time diving into the space, learning from others, and trying to figure out what really works in the manifestation and self development realm to truly build the life of your dreams. I'm naturally very goal oriented and a motivator, and now I'm so excited to be here and help you start manifesting the life of your dreams as well. Much of what I learned in this space was through trial and error, and that's why I'm so excited to also bring you a resource of what has worked and what works for me and what has worked for other people that I've talked to as well, to give you a resource to actually start diving into this space and using some of these tips to uplevel your own life if you're really looking to get the best results and quickly. The Dream Life Diaries is all about taking action, and that's why I'm so excited to have you here today. So if you're ready, let's get into it. Today's episode is all about you being your own motivator. At the end of the day, you are the only one keeping yourself on track and keeping yourself motivated. And I feel like this topic connects so well into my personal life at this moment. I actually came up with this idea to talk about based on these past 2 weeks. So essentially, I feel like I've been running on a 30, 60-day sprint recently. There have been so many changes in my life and such a big uptick in the speed at which things are going, whether that's in my work life, work changes my personal life, huge life shifts that are completely changing the path that I thought I was going to be going on in a few months. A lot more activity in my social life with my friends and other people. I had my family come to visit. I've been spending some more time with my family that are local here. I've been doing so much more with the podcast, some side hustles. I mean, life has been crazy. Needless to say, it's been so exciting, and I'm so blessed to have so much activity going on right now, especially going into the summer months. And I feel like this is a time when life really starts to tick up in speed. I think it's easy to get into the swing of the winter months when things are slower and you're pretty much just begging for things to speed up again. You're begging for those summer months when things are happening fast. People are out and about more and actually outside and doing things when those travel plans are happening. And then I think we all get to the point where it actually gets there and it all happens at once. And we're like, okay, what do we do? How do we manage all of this? Needless to say, I really came across this idea of yourself being your own motivator after this past week. So I ended up not posting a podcast episode this previous week, at the end of April, and that was a decision that I had to make for myself. And it was a very tough decision. I mean, I am so dedicated to holding up those promises to myself and really trying to keep on a schedule and keep consistent. But there was just so much happening. Like I said, my family was finishing up a visit. There was things happening in work. I mean, so many small little things that were out of my control. And it was so hard for me to take a step back. But I got to the point when I think Tuesday rolled around. It was Tuesday night, and usually I post the episodes Wednesday morning or for Wednesday morning. And it was Tuesday evening, and I think I already had something else going on as well. And it was the moment in time when I just had to put up my hands and say, it's okay. It's okay to not do an episode this week because there was no way I was going to be able to write a whole script out, hop on here, record it, edit it, do all the other side editing, write the notes, and upload it before midnight that night. There was just no way impossible, all with like trying to stay active and keep my sanity. So that was my executive decision, was to not post an episode last week, which was really hard for me once again. However, I feel like it's so easy when you do stop once, whether it's going to the gym, cooking a healthy meal and opting for a cheat meal if you're on a diet. Whatever it is, whatever habit that you're trying to stick to, it's so easy to fall out of the swing of things once you stop doing something once. So this really got me thinking on the idea that you are your own motivator and that you are the only one at the end of the day that can keep yourself going. What this really got me thinking as well is that nobody can want something else more than you. Pretty much when you're setting yourself up for a new habit, a new routine, a new goal that you want to chase after, something that you need to be consistent with. Of course, you can ask the other people around you, whether it's your partner, your family, your friends, you can ask the people around you to try and help keep you consistent. But at the end of the day, if your friend or your coworker sitting next to you is bugging you saying, hey, I thought you said you're going to be eating healthy. And what's that in your lunchbox? Do you have a cheeseburger? Do you have fries? What are you doing? Somebody can point out the things that you're not doing to hold up those promises to yourself. But at the end of the day, they can't shove a salad down your throat instead. They could point things out, but at the end of the day, you have to be the one to want the results and want to keep consistent bad enough to keep going through that routine, to keep those promises up to yourself. Nobody can make those results happen for you. And I think we really need to acknowledge this if there is something that we are doing that needs consistency and needs a lot of work to uphold that. And all of this relies on your own self-motivation. If your self-motivation is not strong enough, there is no person out there, no coach, no friend, no motivator that can keep you on track enough to get to the finish line. And self-motivation, that's another thing that you need to build for yourself. Nobody can wave a magic wand over you and automatically make you the most self-motivated person out there. Nobody can be the one to magically push a button and make you be super consistent. There's no way to push a button and have you automatically start getting up at 5:30 in the morning every day and going to the gym super early and doing those things that you want to do. Nobody can do it for you. And that's why you need to want it so bad that you're going to show up and do it for yourself. I think self-motivation is such an interesting topic to think about because I think it could go two ways. I think it could go so far where you do want to hold those promises to yourself. You do want to do the things that are going to bring you wellness, improve your life. If you want to start a business, get healthier, get in shape, get more money, be more consistent, read more books, write more, work on a project, whatever it is, you could be the one to inspire yourself to do that. You could be the one to motivate yourself. But at the same time, it's a double-edged sword because when you're breaking a promise to yourself, a lot of times it's not going to affect other people directly. Especially in these cases here, in these examples, it's not really going to hurt the people around you if you decide not to go to the gym one day, or if you decide to have a cheat meal when you're trying to get healthier. If you're trying to write a book and you decide not to sit down and write that one day, if you skip out on one of these promises to yourself, it's not like you missing out on one of those things is automatically going to have a detrimental effect on the person next to you. And that's what makes it so hard for us. Of course, we love to celebrate when we make progress, and it's so fulfilling when we do push through that barrier to get ourselves to the goals that we want to achieve, and we do show up and we do be consistent. It feels so good. At the same time, oftentimes, there's not a consequence that's drastic enough to really force us to be consistent. I've been recently reading the book Atomic Habits by James Clear, and I know I talk about this book a lot, but there's so many great points in there. So if you have not read it, definitely go ahead and give it a read. But he talks about how when you are missing out on a habit or a goal or some form of consistency, the consequence for not doing an action has to be great enough to keep you to being consistent. And he talks about a lot in habit forming, the method of putting some type of consequence on your actions. So I know one example he gave was one guy would have an automatic Twitter post that would go out if he did not wake up early enough to turn it off. So basically, the Twitter post said, it's 6:10 a.m. and I'm lazy and I didn't get up before 6 a.m. So drop your Venmo here and I owe you $5 each. And then he gave another example as well, where there was one guy who was looking to get a lot more into fitness. I think he wanted to lose 50 pounds and get to a healthier weight. So he specifically made this deal with both his fitness trainer who he hired and his wife. So to his fitness trainer, he made a deal where every single time he, I think, ate a cheat meal or something. Like he had to pay his fitness instructor like $100. Same thing with his wife. Like if he did not get out of bed at a certain time or go to the gym one day, he had to pay her, I think it was like $200. And regardless, this was his motivating factor to keep him moving towards his goals and keep him on track. So, of course, money is a great motivating factor, and it really worked well for these people in these situations. But what if we don't have that? What if we are trying to build something new or build a new habit for ourselves and we don't have that monetary factor behind it? How are we keeping ourselves motivated? You have to want something bad enough to keep yourself pushing towards that end goal. There is no way you're going to put in the effort or the motivation to get to that finish line unless the motivation or the end result is good enough to keep you moving towards it. One big thing that I love to use to keep myself motivated towards my goals is thinking about the end goal, thinking about how I would feel if I actually got to that dream finish line that I'm waiting for. Thinking about with the podcast taking off and really reaching the audience that I want it to being able to inspire people. Thinking about how good that feels, how good it would feel to be able to grow a community around this. If it's fitness, think about how great it would feel to be able to be healthier, to lose that weight, or look the way you want to. It's more than just the number on the scale, too. You have to go beyond that. How would you feel inside? Would you be more confident? Would you be more outgoing? Would you go out and about more? Would you do more things with your friends and family? Because you wouldn't be as insecure. Would you be able to do more physical activities, run around with your kids, things like that? It goes beyond more than just that number on the scale. Or if you're trying to build more wealth for yourself, it's more than just a number in your bank account. How would you feel if you had that $1 million? How would it feel to get that money you're looking to save or build that retirement savings? Would you feel inspired? Would you feel free? Would you feel so overjoyed? And then think about the things you can do with that. Would you travel? Would you eat out more? Would you be more adventurous and explore? It's the things like that that are the backing behind our goal, and those are the real things that are moving us forward. At the end of the day, seeing a certain number on the scale, money in the bank account, an amount of followers on a podcast, that's great. But it's mostly those other factors, those emotional factors inside us behind those goals that are actually going to be the things that push us through all the heavy middle parts to get to the finish line. So if you ever feel your motivation slacking, remind yourself of why you started. You need to remind yourself of those emotional factors, and that's what's going to push you through those muddy parts. Motivation does fade, and it's bound to. And motivation goes in waves. It goes up and down. I mean, I've seen, of course, just doing the podcast alone, there's some days when I'm so inspired, and I just cannot wait to sit down and write a script and jump on here and talk for an hour. But there's definitely days when, there's so much going on or that motivation isn't there as much. And you need those emotional reminders to bring you back to that sense of motivation to keep you going. Now, while motivation does fade, consistency is one of the biggest gifts you can give yourself if you're trying to achieve a big goal. Consistency builds momentum. And once you build consistency and you build that momentum, it's hard to stop it. One thing I always circle back to now is my fitness routine. For years now, probably about 6 years, I've worked out pretty much almost every single day. Of course, I take like a rest here and there or the travel. There's some external factors that can't be controlled. But if I'm living my day-to-day routine, I work out every single day. Even if it's 30 minutes or just a walk, I always do something. And it's gotten to the point over time where it's unthinkable to not do that. It's just so ingrained in my routine where if somebody says, why don't you just not work out today? I kind of give them a crazy look, like, what are you talking about? Like, not work out today? I can't even imagine. It's like somebody was telling me, why don't you just not breathe today? Why don't you just not eat today? It's crazy to me. Once you get so consistent in something, you're going to build that momentum and you're going to build a track record within yourself that's so hard to break. You're going to take a habit that was once forced and hard to do. The first few times I was working out, yeah, it wasn't super fun. Did I love going on a run at first? Not necessarily. But after time, it got easier and it got ingrained into my routine. Things that were once difficult and once needed a big push then become a non-negotiable. Once you're at the point of having that habit be a non-negotiable, you are smooth sailing. Think about going to work. It's a habit and you do it every Monday through Friday or the days that you work. And it becomes the point where going to work, it's a non-negotiable. If you're the type of person who's super adamant about eating breakfast every day, that becomes a non-negotiable. Take your kids to school every day, non-negotiable. Once you get into that rhythm and that habit, those things will become so stuck in your routine that it's going to be hard to even break them. However, of course, there are always going to be moments when there are external circumstances that mess up that routine, that mess up that momentum. And that's why I love to circle back to another point that I read from Atomic Habits. And the author James Clear wrote, "Never miss twice." And I thought that's such a good point to make because we could miss once. You can miss one day on a workout. You could take a rest day, absolutely. But you need to jump back in. Don't miss twice in a row because missing once, that's an accident. That's bound to happen and you could rebound from that super quickly like nothing even happened. But when you miss twice, there is so much of a higher chance of you missing a third time and a fourth time. And what happens after that? The motivation that you spent so long trying to build and the motivation that you spent so long building up starts to fade, and it fades so quickly. When you give up on yourself and the promises that you made to yourself, it slips like nothing. Once again, there's only so much else other people can do to hold up those promises. That's why you need to be your own motivator. You need to be your own scheduler, your own coach, your own hype man. Because yeah, other people can do that for you and they can help so much. They can help try and shift you into the right mindset and help you with that motivation. But you're the only one that's going to push yourself through. I think a good metaphor here is think of somebody running a race. When you're running a race, whether it's a 5K, if you're running a marathon, there's people on the sidelines. There's people holding up signs and cheering you on. Chances are your family might be there or your friends to come support you. And it's so great. It's such a great feeling. And having that motivation, it helps you get through. I mean, that motivates you to run faster, to finish the race. But at the end of the day, that's not what's pushing you across the finish line, okay? There is something deeper in you, that self-motivation that's pushing you across the finish line. You could see your family and your friends and all those people that are cheering you on and still bail, still run in the other direction, just quit. But it's always going to be that something inside of you, your own personal coach and personal hype man and personal motivator inside of you, that's going to be the thing to actually get you across that finish line. At the end of the day, you need to be your own motivator. You need to be your own coach, your own hype man to keep you moving towards your goals. And you need to befriend this part of yourself as well. You can't hate the part of yourself that's forcing you to do some of these things. You need to befriend that part of you and that version of yourself because that way you can use positive self-talk to get you motivated. Use affirmations and visualization to switch your mindset to get yourself into a positive headspace to keep going. Befriend this part of yourself to keep visualizing the end goal that you're working towards, to keep that motivation up and going. Even create a hype list, a list for yourself of a few affirmations and mantras to read when you feel that motivation slipping and you feel that unmotivation creeping its way on in. And it's okay to have some days when you're unmotivated. That's natural and that's so normal. So normalize feeling unmotivated sometimes, but pushing through anyway. Just because you get those days that pop up that you are unmotivated, that doesn't mean to quit. That doesn't mean to take one day and then miss twice. Even on those days, you need to prove to yourself that you're serious about what it is that you're working towards and push through anyway. And this is how you're going to keep going. When you prove to yourself that you can push through even when you don't want to, even when things are hard, that's proving a point to yourself. And that is the biggest thing that you can do. When you are consistent for yourself, especially when you don't have something huge on the line or some crazy consequence for not holding up these promises to yourself, that's going to prove just how serious you are about these goals to yourself, and that's going to keep you going. So, when you're working on trying to motivate yourself, we need to focus on self celebration as well. Make sure to celebrate those wins and those little wins, even the tiny ones. Okay, I think there's definitely a point to be made in being a little hard on yourself and some tough love. But along with that, you can't just have tough love. You need to celebrate those wins and use this as fuel to keep yourself going as well. But guys, thank you so much for listening to this episode today. I know today was a pretty quick one, but I just felt like this was such a quick and sure point to throw out there to anybody who's trying to chase after a goal or get more consistent, build a new habit. It's not easy. And the hardest thing to do is be consistent for yourself. But once you show up for yourself and you stay consistent against all odds, and even when you don't want to, when you keep pushing through, that is going to prove to yourself more than anybody else ever can. I am so excited for you guys. And if you're listening to this today, I imagine you have some big goal that you're working towards. And I just know deep within me that you are going to go out there and you are going to achieve every bit of it. So keep working hard, keep working towards those goals, and don't give up. And I promise you those results will come. I love you guys so much, and I can't wait to talk to you next week. If you want to go ahead and check out the Dream Life Diaries on social media or check it out on YouTube, those links are in the show notes below. And make sure to share this episode with anybody who you think might need to hear it as well. But I love you all so much, and I cannot wait to talk to you next Wednesday. Bye.